And I would look at that and I'd be like, wouldn't it be great if there was a way of making a narrative game where you could do the same thing? You could have an ugly-ass prototype and you could kind of lock the magic and say, this thing's going to work. And my experience of working with narrative in kind of bigger budget video games was that, you know, you'd have like a one-pager and some ideas, and they'd be sketched out, and then you'd start making the game, and there'd be a team of 100 people running on it, and it was just a very messy process. So as I say, I was very jealous of screenwriters being able to go and sit in a room and create something pure, and I wanted to see if I could figure out a way of doing that for a narrative game, where I wouldn't be getting distracted by putting things in a game engine, in as much as Excel or Google Sheets isn't a game engine. And so this was kind of the thinking I was going with when I was trying to make Her Story.
Hi, welcome back to Drink the Video Games. I'm Brian, and today we're going to be looking at an FMV game that truly defied the odds. Not only did this small indie game make its way into multiple Video Game of the Year conversations, but more impressively was that it did that while resurrecting a long-thought-to-be-dead genre, the FMV game. Released on iOS and Windows in 2015, today we are talking about Her Story.
My name is Hannah, H-A-N-N-A-H. It's a palindrome. It reads the same backwards as forwards. It doesn't work if you mirror it though, it's not quite symmetrical, but well, you get the idea. Sorry. Hannah Smith, I live at 31 Gladstone Street.
In Her Story, Simon has gone missing, and we are tasked with helping sort through the police interviews with his wife Hannah. We look for clues in her answers and uncover missing information. With our computer and the recordings at hand, we help piece together the truth and the twists of what really happened to Simon. Her Story and Sam Barlow are at this point more or less synonymous, which makes sense considering that he wrote, directed, developed, and published the game himself. So if we want to learn about how Her Story came about, first we need to learn a little bit about Sam Barlow. Sam Barlow, it seems, is a consumer of stories. According to an interview with PC Gamer, Sam tells of his book journey, quote, "As a very young child, I would max out my library card, and the library cards of my two siblings as well. I like to read lots of books. I'd fill half my book allowance with pulp sci-fi from the 60s and 70s, too much Philip K. Dick. But I would balance that out by reading modern literature, especially in translation, because I knew that was the stuff that was more worthy." End quote. These stories would lay the foundation for the types of storytelling Barlow wanted to put out into the world, with his first foray into the video game medium being the text adventure Isle in 1999. Now, I wasn't familiar with this game until now, but it basically is a short story that you get one chance to affect the outcome of how the story ends. Isle is a simple game, but unique, and goes on to win the award for Best Use of Medium in the 1999 XYZZY Awards, which are given annually to works of interactive fiction. If you'd like to play Isle for yourself, it's pretty easy to find online. From there, Barlow goes on to work for Climax Studios, and would be the lead designer and writer for 2007's Silent Hill Origins and 2009's Silent Hill Shattered Memories. But despite finding some success at the game studio, Barlow really wants to create a more narrative-focused game, and knowing that those types of games aren't really in the business plans for modern game studios, it's time to move on. So after 12 years, Barlow leaves Climax and begins to work on his own game.
One of the reasons that the thing ended up being a video was finding this huge amount of video footage of real-life interrogations online that had been shared as in the public interest or leaked or what have you. But what I also came across was this guy, James Porco, who attempted to murder his parents. I think he murdered one of them and the other survived. And they had the entire transcript of all of the interviews with him and the police, and it was online in a .txt file. So I was like, oh, this is cool. I can use this as a kind of very simple prototype for this idea, and see what happens and see if it works and just kind of play around with it. And it was very easy to do that. So I stuck it, let's see if this will load. Yeah, I stuck this into Google Sheets again. And this is, so when I said I designed it entirely on paper, that's cheating really, because this is essentially a prototype. So I dumped all of Porco's lines from this transcript into Google, and then just used a filter to kind of replicate the idea of searching through this. So here it's searching against murder. But very quickly you could kind of have fun with this, and I just started playing it, and because I tried not to read up anything about this case, I just grabbed the transcript and dumped it in. And so I started playing it as if I was playing Her Story, and found the whole experience quite interesting and fascinating.
According to an interview with Edge magazine from 2014, Barlow lays out his intentions for the game. The idea is to spend the next 6 months to a year writing the game, then begin to recruit staff to help develop the game. And this game would focus on the story, on the character, rather than the atmosphere. Pulling inspiration from crime and courtroom dramas, in particular homicide, life on the streets, this game would be laser focused on the interrogation, which allows Barlow a couple of things. One, he could focus on the story and the game design. Keeping the game's narrative tight and concise is important when you're going it alone. It would also really highlight the acting portrayal, something that Sam knew he wanted to be important from the start.
And I didn't really know what shape this game was going to take, but something early on that I honed in on was the idea of it being focused in the interrogation room. I was obsessed with the TV show Homicide: Life on the Street, if you remember that one, which was one of the shows that for me really explored the fun that can happen in the interrogation room that they called The Box. Actually, you might have noticed this project was originally called The Box when I started it, before I knew that it was about Her Story. And so I decided very early on, if I set this in an interrogation room, if it's about the interview process, then that seems like a very smart indie thing to do, because I don't have to have car chases or locations outside of the interview room. And we're focusing on something that's very character-driven and dialogue-driven, which feels like something that is worth exploring.
There had been crime drama games before, and there had even been crime drama games where the characters' emotions were, at least on the box, meant to be a major component of the game. But the games had either missed their mark emotionally, or lost focus of that during the video gamification of those games. So Sam Barlow decides to go the FMV route, and use a real actress to tell his story, and Viva Seifert would be that actress. But before we get into the other half of this video game, we're going to need a drink that helps us with our late-night detective work, and I think Michaela from Drink the Movies has the perfect drink to help us figure out this crime. Let's take a quick break and see if she can meet us at the precinct to help us comb through this footage and mix up a cocktail. Well, hello, Michaela, and thank you so much for joining me again on Drink the Video Games. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, as always. I'm so excited to be here.
On today's episode, we're talking about an FMV game called Her Story. And normally I ask you if you've heard of these games that we're playing here on the podcast. And yeah, last month, Phantasmagoria, you knew that one, but I have pretty strong suspicion that you've never heard of Her Story. But I am here to tell you, you should have heard of Her Story, or you should hear of Her Story right now, because it is something that is 100% up your alley.
So this is the true crime game. I have never heard of this story until you told me about it. You had mentioned when we were talking about episodes that you were going to be doing this one. And I got it confused with another story thing that came out much earlier. And so I went and looked that one up, but I did not look this one up. So I am completely unawares of this episode or of this video game. But you say it's true crimey. That is right up my alley. This sounds like something I would really enjoy.
That's right, absolutely. And you have a very easy barrier to entry, because this game was released in 2015, and it released on for Windows, PCs, and it also released on iOS and Android, so you can actually play it on your phone if you want to. But this game is perfect for you. Aside from making cocktails and talking about movies with me on Drink the Movies, you also are a big fan of true crime stories. Is that correct? Am I right there?
Yeah.
And something else that you and I like to do, we like to get together and do like the at home like murder mystery game things, right? Like trying to piece together puzzles and clues and solve crimes, right? Like we like to do that, like tabletop gaming kind of a thing. We like to do that too, correct?
We do like to do that. You were much better at like the cipher game stuff than I am. I'm good at like having a good feeling about something and trailing it along, but like you do a lot of the really, I'm pretty good at that. But I feel like when it for some of the code breaking stuff that we do, I hope there's code breaking in this game, because if there is, you would have been amazing at it, because you will look at a cipher for like 10 seconds and you'll be able to figure it out. And I can still do it, but it takes me a lot longer than you. I feel like we would be a dynamic duo if like we were both detectives.
that is exactly what you get to do in Her Story. So, Michaela, in the game Her Story, you are playing as yourself, right? You're sat behind a computer screen, and what you're given is basically a police database, and it's video footage of this woman, Hannah, her police interviews, her interrogations there with the police. So what you're doing is you're searching for keywords, and it's giving you video clips where she's using those keywords, and you're trying to piece together like what actually happens to her missing husband Simon in the game. So I think that this is something that you would really, really like, and I think you'd be into it. So I'm excited for you to play it, or at least potentially watch the playthrough when that goes up onto YouTube. But I think you should play it for yourself, because apparently everyone can kind of get to different conclusions, different ways based on how you're interpreting the things that Hannah says in the game, and that's pretty awesome. And this cocktail that we're making today is pretty cool for it. It is a Guinness Espresso Martini. I sent this over to you, Michaela. Just taking a look at the ingredients, what did you think about this one?
At first I was kind of nonplussed, I'll be very honest, because we've done espresso martinis before here at Drink the Movies, but then I saw that it has Guinness in it, and I was like, I don't know about that. It's got coffee liqueur, as you would, right? It's got vodka, as you would. It's like, I don't know. But holy moly, this is it. This is the best espresso martini I've ever had, and I've had a lot of them. This is amazing.
Yeah, this one is amazing. And there's some reasons why I picked this cocktail, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do that, why don't we go ahead and put one of these together? So, Michaela, I'll let you run through the recipe here for everyone, let everyone know how you put yours together, and then I'll talk a little bit about why I picked this particular recipe to go up with this game.
Sure. Now, I think we can credit this with like Mr. Black's website. So you're going to take an ounce of Mr. Black's coffee liqueur. You can use any other coffee liqueur if you want, but Mr. Black's is like a cold brew coffee liqueur, which is got a different kind of flavor profile. Then you're going to add 3/4 of an ounce of your favorite vodka. Then you're going to add a bar spoon of Demerara syrup. Now, Demerara is like a freeze-dried brown sugar that you can add to water and create a simple syrup that way. It's very good. It's very dark and rich. It's lovely. So you don't need very much of it. A bar spoon, so like a half of a teaspoon is plenty. And then you're going to add an ounce of Guinness. Now, not all Guinnesses are created equal. So if you were going to do this, I suggest going ahead and using either the Guinness draft that either comes in a can with that extra like thing, the thing inside it that encapsulates and opens up, so it's a very it gives it a nice richness.
It's called a widget.
A widget. That's what I used. I recommend that, and you're going to use a full ounce of it. Now it's going to get kind of frothy, and that's okay. That's part of it. When you put it into your shaker tin full of ice, you're going to shake it for a while until it gets really, really, really well mixed. And then you're going to pour it into a chilled coupe glass. It's going to have this really beautiful like crema on the top that's almost like an espresso. It's going to look beautiful. Now, if you want to garnish that with like a couple of espresso beans that you can have float on top, if you can figure out how to do that. Every time I do that, mine fall to the bottom, so I don't do that. I just drink it. This was insanely good. I have no idea why we never thought of adding Guinness to this. It's got a richness to it. It's got like this bitterness, yet a creaminess to it. It's so good. Like I just said, it's my favorite espresso martini that I've ever had.
Yeah, it's incredibly good. The Mr. Black coffee liqueur is an amazing coffee liqueur. It's like Michaela said, it's like a cold brew coffee. It's just blended with a little bit of vodka, so it literally just tastes like some cold brew coffee. I believe the one that you used was from St. George, which is out of San Francisco. That's another really nice, high-quality coffee liqueur. You could use something like Kahlua in this probably, although the flavor is going to be a little bit different, right? Because I think Kahlua has some rum blended into it, so it's going to be a little bit different there. But yeah, whatever you do, make sure you don't skip the Guinness here, because that is where the magic happens in this too. The Demerara syrup is nice, or you could use like a brown sugar syrup if you didn't want to go and pick up any Demerara sugar. That's going to get you basically in the same ballpark, but the Guinness imposes like this creaminess and this richness to it that's delicious. You get the nice kind of like burnt like sugar flavor from either the Demerara or the brown sugar, and then that coffee, it's spectacular. It's really, really good. So I'm excited to have a couple more of these, and I'll have a couple more of these probably while I'm playing through the game over on the YouTube channel. So the reason that I picked this particular cocktail, because I was thinking about it. I was like, if I was playing like this game, I was, trying to get in like the mindset of where I would have been playing this, like in college, like sitting like in a dark room behind a computer, looking at, this film footage of this police interrogation. I'm like, that sounds like something that you do like late at night, right? It's like 2 a.m. You're poring over like the details of this case. You're probably having some coffee to help you stay awake, right? Something like that, or maybe you're having a Guinness, maybe while you're doing this detective work. Maybe that's something you're doing at home while you're poring over this film footage. So I was like, it hits those kind of notes. But one of the other things that I thought was interesting about this particular game was Sam Barlow, who created the game, talked in a couple of the articles that I read about it about how when he initially like wrote the screenplay for the game, he basically had Hannah smoking in it, and that was going to be kind of how he like showed the passage of time, having various states of cigarettes and cigarette ash and stuff in the ashtray there. But apparently, according to like laws and things about smoking, that was a no-go for the game, so he changed it to drinking. I think it's mostly sodas in the game, but I was like, oh, like cigarette smoke there. That kind of harkens back to like the way that Guinness tastes to me, because it has such like a high level of like roast to it. Like it has like this very like acrid taste to me, which always kind of makes me think a little bit about like the acrid like aroma of like like a cigarette butt that just gets put out, right? It's kind of that same like smoky acridness that I get from the drink, and that's not describing it very well, but that's exactly what it tastes like to me in a very delicious way. So I was like, this martini is going to be perfect. It's going to hit all of those notes and help us solve this crime, and I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been trying to figure out ways to like properly explain kind of what the addition of the Guinness does, because an espresso martini is generally vodka based. It's generally got some sort of coffee liqueur. It's generally got a sweetener in it, so it's not too bitter. But the Guinness, like I hear what you're saying when you talk about like the kind of the acridness. I mean, when you think of someone who's like drinks a lot of Guinness, they're usually they're sitting in a pub and they've got a cigarette in their hand and they're like, "Bah, people are awful, bah," This makes sense. I get it. But this drink is a triumph. It's super easy. It's super easy to make. I mean, this is 4 ingredients and it is truly delicious. Now, the only problem that I have with this is, what do you do with the rest of the Guinness? Because if you get like a can of it, it comes in 12 or 14 ounce cans or something like that, right? You can't make 14 of these, but you're gonna wanna, because it's real good. It's real good. I loved it.
That's right. Michaela is going to get sucked in to her story and have to have a couple of these while she's playing through the game. So
and by the way, I just downloaded it. I can't wait to start it. I'm very excited about this. So even on my phone, I'm going to be able to see all the things that you saw when you played this. In 2015.
You can do it all. Absolutely.
That's amazing. This is so great.
There you go. So, happy times for all. So, thank you so much for joining me here on this month's Drink the Video Games, Michaela. Enjoy playing through her story, and definitely enjoy another couple of Guinness Espresso Martinis. But now that we have that made, I need to get back to the story so we can talk a little bit about Viva Seifert and how she fits into this story.
Like the one thing that I was most conflicted about in stepping out of AAA was that I love working with actors, and for me that's like telling a character-based story. Doing it with actors seems somewhat essential. Like I really lean into that, but knowing that making an indie game off of my savings in 12 months, I wasn't going to have $5 million to spend on motion capture and high-end character models and stuff. This isn't a big movie production. If this is supposed to look like this real footage, this is like one camera in this bare room. I'd worked with Viva on my previous The Legacy of Kain project, so I knew that I really enjoyed working with her and that she would be interested in a role like this. So that kind of really rapidly coalesced.
Viva Seifert is kind of amazing. Not kind of. She is amazing. She's an Olympic gymnast, she's half of the rock duo Joe Gideon and the Shark, and she's the award-winning actress that portrays Hannah in her story. The pair had previously worked together on the cancelled Legacy of Kain game, Dead Sun, that Seifert had been hired on to be a motion capture actor. So when the time comes for Barlow to begin creating his game, he reaches out to Seifert to come in for an audition. According to an interview with Game Mob, Barlow states Viva is very good at picking up a line and intuitively pulling a lot of the subtext into her performance. She very quickly brings the character into focus and is very precise in doing subtle things, so she was perfect for what I had planned for her story. And now, with a 300-page script reduced down to 80 pages via some font size manipulation, and the role of Hannah filled, filming can begin. And unlike other stories we've covered this season, filming, while grueling, really goes on without much problem. There are a total of 7 police interviews in the game that would need to be recorded, and they get shot over roughly a week with Barlow filling in as the officer conducting the interview, though we never actually get that dialogue in the game. According to an interview with PC Gamer, it would only be about halfway through filming that the realization began to set in for Seifert that she would be the sole performer in the game, and therefore would have all the pressure and scrutiny placed on her. But Sam trusted her to nail the role, and that added pressure would bring a level of realism to her performance. With the filming completed near Viva Seifert's home at a council building in Cornwall, it's time to get to work making the rest of the game. First up is to doctor the film footage. Barlow had set the game in 1994, so he needs the video to look like it was shot 21 years before the game's release, so he passes the footage through 2 VCRs to give it that subtle, soft, fuzzy quality. As for the console we see in the game, it's a combination of a fake computer interface with an actual program used by police departments. And the sound design? Clacking keys of old computer keyboards, whirring hard drives, and a CRT monitor hum gives the game its ambiance, and the music for the game is provided by musician Chris Zabriskie. Barlow would use 8 tracks from Zabriskie in the game, which he describes as sounding nostalgic with a modern edge. Viva Seifert also performs a song in the game, a tweaked version of the traditional murder ballad, The Twa Sisters, or The Two Sisters, a song that dates back to at least 1656. Barlow felt that the song would help to realize some of the more mythical elements of the story, and the lyrics get changed slightly to fit the narrative of the game. Sam knew about Seifert's musical background, so he sends her the tweaked lyrics, and what we get is the haunting version of the dreadful Wind and Rain that can be accessed in the game.
So I did myself as part of the testing. What I didn't do, which was like a brave or foolhardy thing, was as much as I was testing it in text, I felt like a lot of the actual DNA of the piece was going to be in the video, was in the visuals, was in the subtext, would be in how it played in terms of empathy, in terms of having a character acted out on screen. So I didn't show it to anyone at the text stage, and I locked the script, reassuring myself that like the numbers in my Excel formula with all the random squares seemed to say that this thing was well balanced. Seemed to say it would work, and locked that, shot all the video, and then I pulled all the video in, and then I had a version that I could test on people. And I tested it on 15 people, most of whom were kind of game designers or narrative designers, and it worked for them. So I was like, whew. But at the same time, I was like, they're probably saying it worked for them because they're being nice, and they're game designers. And then I took it to EGX in London, and for 3 days had people play it and was recording all their data so I could see the words they were searching for, the routes they took, were they even interested. And actually that version of the build didn't have subtitles, so I was just watching people over their shoulder, and every now and then I'd see them be like and seeing this body language of the kind of haha eureka, and then doubling down and bending over the keyboard was like, oh, this seems to be having the right effect. And then afterwards, crunching the numbers, it was like, yeah, it's kind of working. So it could have all gone badly wrong.
With the game pieces in place, and some funding support for the game being provided by Indie Fund, an independent game developer-led investment group, it's time for Sam Barlow to release his game to the world. The expectations were low. He knew some people would be on board with the game he had made, but her story is very different compared to the gaming trends of 2015. Somewhere along the way, it sort of dawned on Barlow that what he was making was in fact an FMV game, a genre long thought dead at best and toxic at worst. Regardless, on June 24th, 2015, her story gets published to Steam and to the Apple App Store, and surprisingly, it gains an immediate foothold. Debuting at number 2 on Steam gives her story a chance to be seen. It starts to trend on Twitter, and then the reviews and nominations start rolling in.
This is a complete and utter surprise. And so I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you to the gaming community for embracing this little low-key avant-garde video game. And the biggest thanks of all, a little bit bigger than the gaming community for me, is to go to Sam Barlow, the creator of Her Story. He gave me an amazing script. I'm so glad I said yes. And victory!
Her Story would receive too many award nominations to list here, but there were a lot, including the Breakthrough Award at the Golden Joystick Awards, Mobile Game of the Year at South by Southwest, Best Narrative and Best Performance by Viva Seifert at the Game Awards, and Seifert would take home the Great White Way Award for Best Acting in a Game at the New York Game Awards. Polygon names it as Game of the Year, and in 2015, Edge magazine would list Her Story as 94th in their list of greatest video games of all time. And of course, Her Story wins 3 BAFTA awards.
Sam, I think this table tells its own story, doesn't it? Her Story. It's done pretty well.
It's done very well, yeah.
I mean, 3 BAFTAs. We've got debut, mobile, and innovation.
Yeah.
Great categories. Did you see this level of success coming?
I was hopeful. There were 7 nominations, and in the last year we've picked up a few awards for the game. But you never know. I mean, BAFTA obviously being the history of BAFTA and it being back in England was a big deal for me.
So it seems that Sam Barlow's risk paid off. People loved his game, and maybe more importantly, loved the story that he weaved for all of us. So how do you follow up Catching Lightning in a Bottle? You make a sequel, of course. Well, not really a sequel, more of a spiritual successor with Telling Lies. It works more or less the same way that Her Story does, except this time the story is bigger, involving found footage of 4 characters. Releasing on iOS and Steam in 2019, with ports to the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One in 2020. The praise isn't quite as universal this time around, but Telling Lies is nominated for Ultimate Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards, and would be a feather in the cap for Barlow's newly formed game studio, Half Mermaid, who would go on to release the third of Barlow's FMV masterpieces, Immortality, in 2022.
One of the biggest challenges in any kind of thriller or mystery is you have to have the reveal at the end. And it has to be surprising and weird, because otherwise, But at the same time, you don't want people to see it coming. And one of the real challenges is delivering a twist that doesn't look dumb. The exciting thing with Her Story was having some reveals that were reasonably outlandish and gothic in nature. But because people were putting the pieces together and going, oh, is it this? Then investigating, kind of proving their hypothesis, and then going, oh my God, it is this thing. Like they completely bought into this story and these twists and these reveals because they felt like they had created themselves or anticipated them themselves.
At the time that Her Story released, I certainly heard of it. You couldn't look at anything video game related without hearing about it, but I never actually played it. And honestly, I don't have a very good reason. I always wanted to, I just never did. So when I was planning out the second season of Drink to Video Games, learning about and finally playing Her Story was a big driving factor in deciding to do FMV games. It was hard to imagine growing up in the 90s with this genre that FMV games would have ever returned, but Sam Barlow knew that the FMV format served these types of games really well, and that if the acting was great and that the story was great, people would fall in love with them, and they did. Plus, this game opened the door to a wide range of people who maybe had never played video games, or certainly would have considered themselves to be gamers. Now, FMV games have returned in a big way, with the best examples of this game genre emerging in the past decade or so since Her Story released. So I want to know, what's your experience with Her Story? Did you play it when it released? Or following along as it swept through the video game world? Is this the first time hearing about this crime drama? And more importantly, did you mix up a Guinness Espresso Martini to have along the way? You can let me know down in the comments or on social media. I'm at Drink the Video Games on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can check out drinkthemovies.com for more information on the podcast and links to the merchandise shop. And if you'd like to support Drink the Video Games or Drink the Movies further, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/drinkthemovies for bonus content, hangouts, gaming sessions, and more. Now that I've learned all about this game, I'm really excited to fire it up, so join me over on the YouTube channel to play through Her Story, and maybe we'll even get into some other modern FMV games too. And don't worry, we have one more FMV classic to cover, so we'll be back next month with more video game goodness. This has been Brian. Thanks for listening. Cheers.